All right, welcome back. Today we are going to go over my Salvage Slam 2025 AS 250 list. Yeah, we'll call it an AS 250 list. So, for those of you who don't know, we're doing an event here locally in Minnesota called Salvage Slam. It's a 3-game kind of narrative, casual event. We're using the new Headhunter, updated Headhunter. We're going to use the beta, the beta mission in there for Under Pressure, and then we are using a house scenario called Dropship Down. I did a video a couple weeks ago on the event. You can check it out in the link below. If you're around and there's still spots available, I'd encourage you to sign up. I don't know. I'm recording this a couple weeks before the actual event, and so there may not be a space available anymore. But if there is and you're around, you should totally sign up. So this list originally started off as my What If Gen Con 350 list. I'm not able to make Gen Con this year for a variety of reasons. And I started putting together a list just for fun to show you what I might possibly take in Ilkline era. And so when Salvage Slam came up, I just decided to take that list and drop 100 points off of it. And then run that for Salvage Slam. And so this is what we got. It's kind of nice because I don't have to worry about sub lists. I don't have to worry about subbing in that 100 points here and there to try to come up with mission, a force for a mission. It's the same list throughout the whole tournament, the whole event. But because you're getting salvage points, you might be able to pick up other units and bring them in. So that's going to be like kind of a variable that you can't really plan for. The list has gone through a couple of iterations. So my plan here today is to first show you my final list, and then I'm going to show you one of my earlier drafts of the list and talk about what changes I made and why, so you can kind of see that decision making. And then I'm going to talk about some honorable mentions. Then these are units that originally weren't in my original list. And then when I didn't like some of the original list and I was looking for units to swap out and put in to my final list, I considered these units more heavily and thought about adding them and putting them in there. And then I'll talk about why I thought about adding them in there and why I ultimately decided not to add them in there. One of the things about this event, this Salvage Slam 2025, is that it does allow for proxies. So the first unit that I have on this list is a Contio. They don't make an official Contio model. And that is a shame because the artwork is fantastic and the mech is actually the bee's knees. It is a little metallic Wolverine of fun and just wants to shred. It is so good. If you didn't watch my video recapping the Contio, you should go check that out. But he is my number one unit. Also my most expensive unit. So in the revised Headhunter, where your CO has to be your most expensive unit, for this game, it's going to be my Contio. The other thing I like about the Contio, we'll get into it, is he's only move 18, so he's TMM 3 technically. And this event has a cap on TMM 4 plus units at 2. But because he's got stealth, he kind of sneaks into the TMM 4. So he's not as fast as like a true TMM 4, although when you get TSM going on him, he does go up to 20. But he kind of slides in under the radar, air quotes. And so it gives me a little more speed than what might otherwise be allowed at this event. The Warhammer 2C11, I also have a Blackhawk KU, the O model, which I love. I took that at Adepticon, and it was just a great mech. I have a Warhammer 2C8, which is also a fantastic mech. I'm loving that thing. An Ebony 10. There's some shenanigans that you can do with this Ebony 10 that I really like, but also he's a little frustrating, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. The Pike support vehicle, the Plasma, it's so good. For 19 points, it's so good. And then just to round things out, I have a armored personnel carrier with the hover one with the MG. All my units are skill 4, and except the that hover personnel carrier, which is a skill 5, and it comes out to a perfect 250 points. So let's talk about the list and kind of my thoughts behind building it. We're going to start with that Contio. He's size 2, TMM 3, move 18, 440 with an OV 1, 7 total health. He's bringing ECM, ENE, melee, stealth, TSM. Go watch the video for the full review on him and why he's great. I absolutely love him. I've probably played 4 or 5 games now with him. He's never died. He's very, very threatening on the board because he can do a ton of damage in melee, especially if he gets behind stuff. And he's basically just runs around snagging objectives and murdering big mechs. The melee kind of struggles with like the small stuff because that high TMM makes that one die roll for the hit really whiffy. But I do like, as much as I don't like OV1 in general, I do like that OV1 on a TSM because I find in the first round of the game on the first turn, I get a shot off and I get to do it at 5. Then I get my heat up by 1. And then I basically run around and claw you to death. And I get to get that +2 movement. So he's really mobile. And I'm banking on him. And then also that armored personnel carrier with the hover MG and the ebony to be able to jump on the salvage very quickly. So I'm hoping to have more mobility than like maybe some other lists to be able to grab salvage and score those salvage points to be able to use. He's so much fun, and all those special abilities are like point efficient. Like you're not losing anything, you're not paying for anything that you don't need. On the downside, he is a little on the squishiness. He's a little squishy at 7 HP, but to be honest with you, I haven't lost him in a game yet. I really wish they had an official model. I really, really do. Because he's got stealth, basically his TMM is 4. He's not even worth shooting at long range because his TMM ends up being like 5 because of the stealth. And because his speed is so high, you can basically position him wherever you want. So he doesn't take a lot of there's not a lot of shots that come in on him, and he's pretty scary. So I think he's worth it for 52 points, to be honest with you. With that higher TMM, that 7 HP feels like 14. I mean, it feels like double, and it's so good. Next up is the Warhammer 2C11. I really dig this Warhammer. He's 48 points, size 4, TMM 1, 8 move, 770 with no OV. And he's got like, 8 armor and 6 structure, so 14 total HP. And he's just got 1 special ability, and that's case. So it's super efficient. There's another version of this it's 1 point more. It's 49 points, and it's got energy. And I'm almost half tempted to try a list where I run both of those Warhammer 2Cs, but I do like the 2C8, which we're going to talk about next. What's great about this thing is that medium range damage is so efficient for 48 points. Like you're getting a lot out of it. And then he's not fast by any means at 8, but he's not slow. He's not some of these like, you got these like assault mechs out there that they'll throw 6, 7, 8 damage at medium, right? Or even at long. They have a high damage output, right? But they move 6, and it's just like it's really hard to get them in position and keep them in position. It's really easy if you're going up against those mechs to just like maneuver in such a way that they don't get to fight. And at least at 8, you got some flexibility there to fight. You do have to be really mindful about where you deploy him, and he's got to have like a set spot on the board that he's defending or going after that your opponent also wants to be at. Like that's really key to these like move 8 mechs. But because he's got so many hit points, he's really hard to chew through. So, for example, the other night I was playing up at the club against my buddy Jacob, and he was really trying to wreck this thing and just wasn't able to do it. Right? It's just a lot to chew through. And so if you're like, if you're in cover and your team is 1 and you're at medium range, and then your opponent is a skill 4, he's needing 8s to hit you. He's got to dedicate a lot of firepower to you to chunk into you. And that case helps a lot, right? Like that, it's not like energy, that other version for 1 more point. I can't remember the number, what the variant is off the top of my head. Energy is definitely better, but I needed like save 1 point. So I really like that I have that flexibility for a point. I can be like, oh, I want case, and I'll just take case instead. Oh, I have a point to spend. Oh, I'll just upgrade this thing to energy. So he's really, really solid mech. I really, really, really dig him. And in my games, he's just been like a solid base of fire. I think I've only lost him like once because he's so much to chew through. A lot of times he just gets ignored because people are like, oh, that's so much, so much to chew through. But then you're dishing 7 dice, and it's really, really good. Next is the Warhammer 2C8. It's 45 points. It's a size 4 mech. One of the things I really like about this is that it's a TMM 2 and a move 10, which is really, really good for an assault mech. Especially when you see his next stats, which is his damage output, which is 4402. So, or 440 with an OV 2. So not as good. I mean, he's 45 versus 48 on the other 2C, the 11. So he's losing 3 shots. They get converted over to OV. But He has heat 222, and for some reason, like, I just love that. I love that option, to be dumping some heat here and there. You can double up on damage on vehicles and infantry, of course, when you're hitting that heat. But I mean, I've played a game recently where, like, between him and then we'll show you here in that with that pike unit, I was able to shut down a couple vehicles and, like, kind of like take them out of the game without destroying them in a turn, and that was really helpful. And his speed of 10 is really, really nice for an assault mech. His health is not like the greatest for an assault mech. It's 7-4, so you're only looking at 11 health, which is also not the end of the world for a TMM2 speed 10 mech that's 45 points. Like, you think about, like, next we're going to talk about that Blackhawk KU, which has got, um, what has it got? It's got the same amount of health at 46 points, or no, wait, it's got 10 health. It's got one less structure, that Blackhawk. But a lot of those, like, kind of like HP 9, HP 10, TMM2, Move 10 mechs, they're they're really good, right? They're just really solid. And this guy brings it as a Warhammer 2C, and he's an assault. A lot of those other mechs are heavies instead of assault, so you've got that extra beef and that extra size. He's bringing the heat. He also has case, so he's a little more protected, and he's got that invulnerability. I like to run him actually in tandem with that Warhammer 2C, like close by. It doesn't have to be like right on him, but I find like running them as a buddy pair. They're dishing like 11 damage, plus they're also dishing some heat. He has that OV2, which, like, you can go nuclear in the end, which is nice. You're not going to use it every turn because you're just going to, like, shut yourself down. But in the end, you can really put the hurt on someone, which is pretty good. So I really like this guy. I ran him, I think it was last year at Gen Con. I actually ran one of these in my doubles list with Jarrus. He was in my Torian list, and I really liked him there as well. Next is the Blackhawk KU O variant. Same one I ran at Adepticon, 46 points, size 3, TMM2, move of 10J with a jump. He has a short of 6, a medium of 5, a long of 0, and an OV1 for what it's worth. He's got 7 armor and 3 structure for a total of 10 HP. He's also got energy and Omni. The Omni is a nice little extra. I don't have battle armor, so it's kind of a waste here. I'm paying for Omni, but I'm not using Omni. But it is kind of nice because it's hard if you're Inner Sphere and you don't want to run like clan mechs to find, especially in earlier eras. If you can pick this thing up, a move 10 Omni mech for Inner Sphere, especially in like clan invasion and stuff, is like really good because that's about as fast as you get as an Omni mech. And then the energy, of course, is great. Now, one of the things I love about the Blackhawk KU is the Blackhawk is a squatty, like, heavy mech, right? He has a very low profile, so it's very easy for him to get cover. Now, sometimes that is to his disadvantage because he has a harder time seeing, but it's very easy for him to get cover. There's never a question like when you're behind a hill, or you're close to a hill or a piece of terrain, like, you kind of know if he's in cover or not, where some of these other bigger mechs, it can be a lot harder to hide them. I also really love that short range 6 that he brings. Um, in a lot of missions, you end up fighting at close range over objectives. And so he's medium 5, which is very point efficient at 46 points. But then to get that 6 at short range, like, you close, you close into close, and then suddenly, like, it's shooting you even more. And it's such a good model. What's great is when you play a clan player and they're running like clan Blackhawk. What is it? A Nova? I don't know. I'm not a clanner. Don't quote me on it. But when you're playing against the clan variants, they don't have as many hit points. And so it's really funny because you have, like, it's like the one, to me, it's like the one instance where, like, the Inner Sphere version of the clan thing is better. He's just so solid and so good. And I absolutely love the Blackhawk KU, the O variant in particular. There's a couple variants that are, worth considering, but this one is great because he's 6'5". He wants to be in the fight. He can jump if he needs to. And so I usually, I run him as, kind of a bully mech. He's just kind of running around, dumping shots into things. He's got good health. I really love him. He's a great mech. It's just too bad that metal model is the only option. I wish they had a plastic Blackhawk KU. The metal one, it's fine. It's just like kind of chonky and it's very square, but it's great. It's a great unit in Alpha Strike. Next is the Ebony 10. He's a 30-point model, size 1, TMM 4, move 20. 1, 1, 1 is his damage output, no OV, 3 armor, 1 structure. He's bringing ECM, ENE, melee, stealth, and TSM. So his specials are great. There's nothing to complain about his specials. You're not wasting money on anything. And that ends up letting me run 2 ECM in this list. So if anyone's trying any sort of C3 shenanigans or any sort of, electronic warfare shenanigans, I basically have the board covered with 2 fast mechs between this and the Contio. I want this mech to be so good. I actually went out in my first list. I actually have 2 Ebonies, and we'll talk about that here in a second. What I like about him is he's fast. When his TSM is up, he's up to 22 for his move, which is great. He also has that stealth, so his TMM is effectively 5, so it's very hard to kill him. It's 6 at long range. What I like is he's got that melee. So if you run through the melee numbers, he's size 1, he's melee, he's TSM, and then if you can get a rear shot, he can do effectively 4 damage. So for 30 points, you got a mech that can do 4 damage to a unit, and he's super fast, right? Now, you can't hide him like you can that armor personnel carrier because he is tall, but he is fast, so he can get in and out of things. He does have the ECM bubble. The problem I've been having with him, and I'm going to run him in the event because I really want him to work. And he's a great little objective grabber, and he's scary enough to be threatening just with his mobility and his damage output. The problem I've had with him and the Contio as well is, man, melee can be so swingy. I know I've got, like, my buddy John is really good at melee, and he's just, he'll set a personal goal of like, I want to kill like 100 units in this tournament with melee. It's like stupid. And he gets away with it. And I don't understand how, because I don't think this Ebony in like the 5 games I've played has done more than like he's actually connected like maybe 2 times in melee over the course of that. Now he does have an effect on the game, and then one of the problems is, if you're going to melee, and this is definitely an issue with him. I've played a bunch of clan lists, and he's ended up having to like melee fight because he doesn't have any real guns at 111. He's having to melee fight like stuff that's got like TMM 3 and TMM 4, and you're looking at 7s and 8s. You're just, it's a coin flip, and it just constantly comes up not good. So I did have 2 Ebonies in this list. The other one did not have a melee weapon. It had T-Simp, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And I just couldn't, the list was just struggling too much. So I dropped the second Ebony, even though I paid like $22 to Aries to ship a single model. I was like, I need 2 Ebonies. Said no one ever, right? But it's fine. Now I have 2, and they're painted differently. So one is McLaren's Armored Rangers, the other is Death Commandos. But he is a good little objective grabber for 30 points, and that 4 damage is pretty threatening. I just, on some level, I wonder if I'd be better off with like a J. Edgar or a Maxim instead, because the J. Edgar would move a little quicker. I'd have two at short. I would be tempted to charge you. The other problem is, he has died several times, and the reason he's died is because he gets into like close range because he needs to swing, but then he has like no health, right? So then he just, it doesn't take a lot to chew through him and get him down there. But we're gonna leave him in there, and we're gonna keep trying because, God, I want him. The artwork is super cool. It's like super like sinister and threatening. The model's a little on the derpy side, so make a plastic one. I hope Catalyst do like a Capellan box that just has like only cool Capellan mechs, none of this like reposes of a Griffin or something. But I want him to be good, so I'm going to keep trying him out. I'm going to run him in this event because it's going to be more narrative and more casual and less competitive. And these kind of events are where you want to test out those units that you like for the looks or for the lore or for the art, right? It's where you test them out and see what they can possibly do, and try to make them work. So I'm going to try to make him work in this one. He'll at least be a nice little objective grabber, especially opening moves, trying to get that salvage. Next is the Pike Support Plasma. 19 points. He's a 3-1. Was that a 6 tracked? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm looking at an army list that I used the other day, so some of the stuff's a little crossed out. He took some motive hits in my last game. He was basically down to 2 movement. Yeah, so he's size 3. He's a TMM of 1. He's a 6-track move. He's 110, but he's got a lot of health for 19 points, like 5-3. So that's 8 HP for 19 points. Really good. He's got case, so he's crit resistant. And he's got heat 222. And the and that's in the turret, which is great. The heat 222. He also has a searchlight. Oh my gosh. You take him for the heat 222. And, going back and forth because he is slow and he doesn't really grab a lot of stuff. But pairing him up with that Warhammer 2C and throwing that heat around can be really nice. And at a minimum, because he's throwing that heat, he gets to be a distraction. And so I kind of don't care if my opponent shoots at him. In fact, I kind of want him to shoot at him so he's not going after my other stuff. But you kind of have this like low key, point efficient sniper that's not really doing damage like say a Shrek or a Partisan would do, but is definitely dropping the heat. And so if he connects with a vehicle or infantry, he's doing the heat damage there. Although you do have to keep in mind he's only damage 110, so some of that heat only does air quotes heat damage. It doesn't do conventional damage as well. So you're not quite as efficient as like say something like that Warhammer 2C where the heat 222 is stacking with his actual damage output. But you connect with a mech a couple times and suddenly your opponent is running around with mechs that are on fire. Like they don't like that, so they start responding to it. He's also like a prime candidate to like go stationary, so you get him down to like skill 3 by going stationary, so you're more likely to connect, especially on big mechs that are they're TMM1. And so you connect with them with the pike, and now your opponent's heavy hitters got some heat on them, and they're not doing as well, and it doesn't bode well for him. And in fact, he's gonna be my like first candidate. Him, maybe the ebony, but more likely the pike. If I get 3 salvage and I want to skill something down, I'm thinking about doing it on the pike because then he'll be skill 3, stationary skill 2, and I can really reliably put that heat out on units. And between him and the Warhammer 2C, you can really like mess with your opponent's battle plans and game plan by like distributing heat that they don't really need or want on their opponents or on their mechs and units. Last is the Hover MG. It's an armored personnel carrier, and it's a size 1, Team M4, move 20. It's 10 points because I skilled it down to 5. It's 100, and it's got 1 armor, 1 structure. And it's got a turret, 100. So that's great. So you can shoot 360. I like him. He's just an objective grabber. Really, he does a good job cleaning up for 10 points. I had a couple games where I got units down to like 1 hit point, 2 hit point, and you can like basically be like, well, my armored personnel carrier is just going to move into the rear and finish you off. I think in my game against Jacob that I mentioned a couple times now, I think he got 2 kills. So for 10 points, I finished off 2 units. It was pretty awesome. So overall in this game, the way I'm going to play it is that personnel carrier, Ebony, and Contio are going to be my primary objective grabbers and salvage grabbers, while my pike sits back and provides long-range fire support in the form of heat damage, while the other 3 units, the 2 Warhammer 2Cs and the Blackhawk KU, play the midboard as skirmishers. And I know the 2C, the 11's technically a juggernaut, but you play them more like a skirmisher, you move up, and you finish things off. And then the Contio and the Ebony aren't just grabbing objectives, they can also destroy stuff with their claws and their swords, which is pretty awesome. Just I like the idea of like mechs punching each other, right? That's pretty sweet. So let's look at my first draft list. It had the Contio, the 2C11, 2C8, the Ebony 10, and the Pike plasma. So it didn't have the Blackhawk and it didn't have the armored personnel carrier. Instead, it had an Ebony 12 and it had a Shadow Hawk 2C5. Then the 2C5, I ended up dropping. I brought them because so the reason I run the Ebony 12 and the Shadowhawk in my original list was I thought I'd get super cute and gimmicky and try to use the Shadowhawk 2C5. It's a 12 jump. It's only got 110. It's 9 total health. It's got case, but it's also heat 222. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to run 3 units with heat 222. And I'm just going to shut stuff down and then claw them to death and get all those bonuses and then shoot them to death because everything's going to be shut down. I just found I wasn't doing enough damage to finish units off, though. I could not reliably. I was having a hard time connecting with the heat sufficiently enough to shut stuff down to where then my melee could really finish them off efficiently. And then I just didn't have the guns at long range. And so I ended up dropping that Shadowhawk. And then with the Ebony 12, he's got ECM, Stealth, TSM. He doesn't have a melee weapon. What he has is TSEMP 1, which is basically like a mech taser you can shoot every turn. And I thought this was going to be like awesome. I'm just going to be like running around like, boom, you're shut down. Boom, you're shut down. Boom, you're shut down. I played like 3 games with it. I didn't shut down a single unit. One, I found myself, because this list had like very little damage output, I found myself needing him to be in melee, but because he doesn't have a melee weapon, he was only doing 3, and then he's still squishy, just like the other Ebony. And then the T-Semp, like you got to roll to hit the unit, and then you have to roll for the taser to go off. And basically you're rolling on 7s and 8s both times. And you're basically like, it just, the odds are not in your favor to like shut something down. And I eventually was like, I just need something else. I need something else than these 2 things. I need something that can like do some more damage. And so I dropped them. I added that Blackhawk KU, and then the armor personnel carrier just for a little more mobility. So, I mean, this is an example of why like you do really want to like test your lists and see if your ideas work, because this was not working and I was not having a lot of success. Now the other thing that I did like about the 2 Ebonies and the Kantio were, in theory, I could do something like 16 or 17 damage in a turn in melee, depending on how I got the melees off. Did I charge? Did I not charge? Did I have rear shots? And so if you could like tornado a single unit, you could really like put the hurt on, but it just didn't. It didn't happen the way I foresaw it in my head, and then I wasn't getting the shutdowns like I was hoping to finish people off. And I really like having that Black Hawk in there instead. Let's talk about a couple honorable mentions. When I decided that first list wasn't working for me and I was kind of playing with it, there were 2 units that I kind of considered as kind of additions to the list. So instead of the Blackhawk KU, originally looked at the Phoenix Hawk 2C3. It's a 45-point skirmisher, 10 jump, 550. It's got energy weapons, but it's got 11 hit points. It's 7-4. I really like the look and the idea of the Shadowhawk 2C, like this giant jumping assault mech. I ended up not taking it because I just like having like, so okay, so he gets 1 extra health over the Blackhawk, but his short range damage is 5 instead of 6, and that's basically what it came down to. That and the only Shadowhawk 2C model I have is a metal one, and it is ginormous, and you can't hide it from nothing. The last thing I looked at was, I considered this briefly, and that was, do I swap out the pike? Because I wasn't sure what, like I was like, I have too much heat in here. Do I keep the Shadowhawk in here? Do I drop the pike? What do I do? And I thought about running a Skulker. Um, um, the tank is the C variant. It moves 18 wheeled, but it also has, I believe it has stealth. Is that why I wanted it? Yeah, it has stealth. And so I was like, oh, here I can sneak. It's an 18 move wheeled vehicle, TMM3, but I can sneak another TMM4 in here. So I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll teach them to limit me to 2 TMM4s. I'm gonna run all this stealth stuff that's TMM3 and get them all up to TMM4. I ended up not doing it, just because I felt like I had enough speed already, and that dropping that pike support, and swapping him in there, it also messed with my points, and I'm happy with that armor personnel carrier. That only has 2 health versus the Skulker, which has 3. I mean, and basically like they're both at TMM4, right? So, but that was an option I looked at. I did go out and buy a single Skulker, in the hopes of playing with it. So I don't know how much I wasted on that, but I'm a gamer, right? So who cares? Yeah, so I'm really excited for this army. I hope you learned a little something about, lists, why you put them together, having a plan. It's really important to have a game plan, like how are you going to use them? Like I talked about, I've got some mobility, I've got some objective grabbers, I've got some salvage grabbers. And then, I played tested the list, didn't like it, swapped some stuff out, considered some other things, and ultimately settled on a plan. So if you've ever just run a straight 250, let me know below. What's that experience like versus a 350? And otherwise, hope to see you at Salvage Slam, and may the blessings of Blake be upon you.